PR Done and Dunner. I'm your host, Bob Geller, and this is a special episode covering the situation in Israel. And of course, we've been watching very closely with great concern. We're about a month in now following that terrible attack on Israel. A number of us have family there. Fusion PR does lots of business with the Israeli tech community. And it's a time of tragedy and strong emotions. Not always clear how to best respond. The world is watching. Much of the U.S. media coverage, unfortunately, has been somewhat unfair and biased. So it's a very good question for Israeli tech companies, not just Israeli tech companies, many others. What do you say? What do you do in a situation like this? Of course, we have our opinions. We want you to hear from people on the ground in Israel, friends and associates who work in the tech and startup worlds there. So we invited a couple of guests, smart and accomplished people. And before I go much further, let me welcome our friends and thank you for joining us, Yotam Gutman and Shai Alani.
Hi, good evening.
Hey, good to be here.
Welcome, and thanks for joining. And before we get into the issue, could you please just give kind of a quick introduction of yourselves and what you do? And so we'll start with Shai.
So my name is Shai Alani. I'm based in Tel Aviv. I've been doing marketing for the past 12 years of my life. Love what I do. Currently, I'm the VP marketing of Aporia. We deal with AI performance, and I'm a customer of Fusion PR.
Great client. And Yotam, we know you for a long, long time. You want to say more about what you do?
Yeah, we've known each other for almost a decade, I think.
Yeah.
I have roughly the same track record as Shai, doing marketing with Israeli companies, specifically within the cyber community. I also manage a forum, a community of cybersecurity marketers, and I consult several cybersecurity startups. So it's great to be here tonight.
Excellent. And let me first ask you, and hopefully you're not getting tired of hearing this question. And in this case, it's not small talk. It really is sincere. How are you doing? How are your families doing? Right? Coping? Hopefully nobody's not in any immediate peril or has been terribly harmed by this.
Yeah, I'll start. So I'm a little bit north. I'm in Herzliya. It's a couple of kilometers north to Tel Aviv. In general, central Israel is safe at the moment. We do get some rocket bombardments like once or twice a day, which are handled by Iron Dome and other mechanisms. So relatively safe. Kids are back at school. They have shelters there. So it kind of feels like everything is normal, but it really isn't. My daughters are 8 and 11. We try to shield them from the situation as much as we can. But when you walk in the street, you see signs with picture of people being kidnapped. They ask you about it. You try to circumnavigate that as much as you can. You try to take them out of the room when you watch the news. So we try to shelter them as much as we can, and hopefully things will improve soon.
Help our audience understand, by the way, you say central Israel. Do you mean Tel Aviv or where are you actually?
Yeah, it's about 9 kilometers north of central Tel Aviv. It's almost a small suburb of Tel Aviv. Israel is fairly small. I mean, Sometimes we sit here outside and we actually hear the fighting going on in Gaza, which is, I don't know, 80 kilometers away. You can sometimes hear it at night.
Wow.
So it's
Have any
so
missiles
small.
actually landed in that area, or has Iron Dome gotten them all?
Only small fragments, and as long as people adhere to security, instructions, you walk into the shelter whenever there's a siren, you wait for 10 minutes. We even have a special application in the phone. If you don't hear the siren, you run to the shelter. So
wow.
Sadly, we're very well rehearsed in this very unnatural situation. So trying to keep ourselves safe and endure this.
So what about you and your family, Shai? And as I understand it, you serve in the reserves. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my mandatory service was as a combat soldier. I got injured in the last period of the so Israeli mandatory service is 3 years. It was 3 years. Now it's a bit less. I got injured in the last quadrant of the last year. So I volunteered for reserves during the first week of the war, serving in the IDF spokesman. What we've done is basically we're mainly focused on global media and trying to get out the story to as much people as we could. So we've connected a group of 50 CMOs and VPs of marketing that work on global companies like us, and try to generate media pickups of either families of hostages, families of people who was lost due to this tragedy, or people that were actually there. So we were trying to make these connections because we know that the media and the press is as important as the actual fighting that goes there. And I want to roll back to the question that you originally asked about how are we. And I think this could be the most complicated question to answer at these times, because on one hand, we're okay, like we're physically okay, mentally okay. My family is also fine, but Israel is such a small company.
Yeah.
It's such a small country. Like, I don't think that there's a single person in this country that doesn't know someone who was affected by this tragedy. So it kind of makes you think about how to answer the most basic question of how are we? How are we feeling? This is the craziest thing in this situation, I think.
Yeah, it definitely harkens back to 9/11, but over there, and kids are upset. A lot of different opinions, and unfortunately, sometimes division. And you mentioned media coverage, and I said at the outset that Israel has been very unfair and biased and unfair towards Israel by and large. I mean, the U.S. media, many. By the way, can others sign on to this communications effort with CMOs? Is it just Israeli-based folks?
Yeah, definitely. We've created a network of connections that relates back to either the families of the captive or people that were actually there. We have a database of people who are willing to interview and can do it in multiple languages. So everybody who wants to chip in, that's an open group. We have around 55 people now active in the group, and whenever there's an opportunity from the global press, we're just introducing the right people. They hop on a call, speak on the required language, and tell the story of what happened. I think that this whole situation is, when you look at it from a numbers perspective, it's very hard. Like, it's very easy to be numb to what actually happened. But when you hear the stories, when you hear the people tell about their friends or family who just woke up on a Saturday morning and wanted to eat with the closest and dearest and got massacred, it brings a different angle, and we're more than happy to do these connections.
That's awesome. I mean, if you're comfortable, I'll put a link in the show notes if it's something like that, or if you want to share it privately, whatever. But
oh yeah, definitely. We can generate a link. It's a WhatsApp group, but it's very open to whoever wants to help out.
No, that's awesome. It sounds like very important work. Is it just getting off the ground? Have you been at it? Well, it's only a month old, this conflict, but I mean, are you starting to have some kind of effect, or do you think, are you seeing some interest from the media in your efforts?
Definitely. We've had around 300 interviews since the beginning of this scenario to global press, spreading from New Zealand to San Francisco. We're very happy with what we've accomplished. Sadly, due to the fact that the Israeli military is currently in Gaza trying to clear out all the terrorists, we're seeing the global media kind of shifts to things that are occurring now in Gaza, and not the situation that was the actual root of what's happening.
I mean, it was a lead story on many networks, of course. It has been for weeks. Now suddenly it's we just had an election yesterday, Republican debates tonight. So it quickly gets pushed off the front pages by many. But, it's tempting not to talk business because there are so many vital concerns. But business is important. And I think business in many ways has to continue. So I will ask, I mean, has your business been impacted, Shai?
So we're an Israeli US based company. The headquarters are in Tel Aviv. It was impacted. Like every business in Israel was impacted by the situation. Um, Plenty of people got fired, mostly in the domestic businesses. Plenty of people just can't wake up and go to work. There are employees in our company that their dearest one is either hurt or currently serving in the army, just trying to protect the civilian lives here. So they just can't come to work knowing that their loved one is could be hurt at any given time. I have two brothers. One is serving in the northern border of Israel, and one is serving in the southern border.
Oh, wow.
And whenever something happened, it just stops the power. Like you can't think of anything else. So, as a global company, we continue to do what we do because we need to push forward the economy, and we need to make sure that we'll survive in the global domain that we're taking an active part in. But every business was affected. I think that's a true story.
We've been on calls with clients and heard the sirens in the background. We've been on media briefings and heard the same. Yotam, are you continuing the great work you've been doing in the cyber community?
Yes, although I've taken some pause from the very straightforward career path I was on, and now doubling in teaching in high school, I'm still consulting several cyber companies here, and they've been impacted in very similar ways, starting from employees who have been drafted, others who have relatives and friends who've been impacted, some killed, some kidnapped, others just with families, in the conflict areas, they've been evacuated towards more central, secure locations. So they have to tend to their families. And even, as Shai said, even nothing, I mean, I'm very lucky. No one I know has been impacted. My family is okay. We're very fortunate. But again, when you see the news, when you hear the sirens, I mean, something changes. And we thought that we were immune to that. I mean, living here for the past 45 years, I've seen, like, the first rockets fired here was 91 from the Gulf, okay, the first Iraq war. Then we had numerous terrorist bombing and stabbing. I've been in the IDF for 6.5 years, then another 14 in reserve duties, 3 wars. You think you're immune to that, but what we've seen and felt on that day and going forward, was something completely different. A lot of people here compare it to the Holocaust. It sure feels more like a genocide than an actual war. And the fact that it hasn't been resolved, there are people who are absent. Some may never be located. There are over 200 people kidnapped. Having kids of your own and thinking about kids in captivity or taken from their parents or seeing their parents bleed to death, I mean, it shakes you. We've heard stories like that from 70 plus years ago. We never thought we'd live to see that happening here. So on one hand, yes, I'm sitting here, it's nice, I'm having air conditioned. I'm older than Shai, so my closest friends aren't in the field at the moment, and the people I know are safe. But yeah, there's a very big impact. On the other hand, and I always like to look at other places and compare, we have a very recent example of a conflict on a much larger scale with massive human suffering going on in the Ukraine over close to 18 months or so. And as you said, it catches the headlines for the first week, the first month. Then when something outrageous happens, there's constant fighting there going on every day, regardless of who you think is right. There's huge human tragedy going on, and people have learned to live with that. I have friends in Kiev who work with Israeli companies and in other places in the Ukraine, because Ukraine is a big tech hub. lots of cooperation
Sure.
with the Israeli companies. A lot of companies have outsourced entire teams to the Ukraine. And the first couple of months, once the sourcing started, was crazy. People didn't know where their employees is. Some were under Russian occupied territories. They couldn't hook up to the internet. Luckily, Ukrainians are very technically proficient. They managed to circumnavigate all the blockades, connect through VPNs. And you talk to this guy, say, yeah, I mean, there are Russians outside, but I'm in the basement. I have internet connectivity. I might as well just work, get some money flowing to my family. And the fact that they've been doing it for so long under extremely difficult conditions, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have died in that war, that 5 million have fled the country. It gives me hope. I mean, I sincerely hope our situation will end sooner. But people can endure under very difficult condition. And I think what you said, Bob, this is the key. I mean, we have to keep on functioning as a society. We have to keep on doing business. If we don't bring money in, there's no way we can pay taxes and support this effort. So by doing what we do now, we actually help Israel overcome this situation. So that gives me a lot of hope and optimism.
I agree 100%. And it's a little bit frustrating, though, sometimes the press's reaction. Like, for instance, if there was journalists, we were trying to line up for a briefing, actually a big journalist from a big publication, for 6 months, put us off. Finally made time for a briefing. And of course, it was over the past couple of weeks. So all this is going on. We had a decent briefing, but after we spoke to the journalist, and he said he was just surprised and disappointed that we chose to take an interview during this time, because that was one of the situations where I said we heard sirens going on in the background. So it seems like you can't win. But yeah, I mean, listen, this show is about communications, PR. So, and we're getting practical with business too here. Business goes on, life goes on. It must create a constant state of anxiety, but you do the best you can. So what is the proper response for companies? I mean, what should they be saying and doing at this point? I mean, I'm talking about all channels, internally to their employees, social media, public relations. Yotam, I'm sorry, Shai, you want to go take this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think that you need to be very to have a lot of compassion first for your employees.
Yes.
The internal communication is the most important channel, as I see it, because people are going through stuff. And if you want the business to keep on rolling, you need to make sure that no, it's not. It's an ambulance siren. Sorry.
Okay.
Happens. Still happens.
Of course.
From time to time. Funny story. They changed the siren to make it sound less alike the
idea.
Yeah, the rocket siren.
Which one is this? This is not the rocket one, though, huh?
No. It's the ambulance. If it was the rocket, I was running to the bomb shelter here.
Where are you, by the way, in Israel?
In Kiryat Ono. It's right next to Tel Aviv.
Okay.
We just moved. Like we moved 2 days ago, which is crazy to move under these circumstances. We just finished bringing in the last box, and the siren caught us. So we went into the bomb shelter in the house, all of us, like 5 movers, all the family, all the people that stepped in to help. It's this situation is odd for all of us. Rolling back to your question. Yeah, we were talking about how do you communicate? Yeah, so I said that I personally think that you need to be very open with the employees of the company. Show compassion. Show that you know that they're going through something, and it's okay if they take the time. And I think most of the companies did that on the first week of war. Just let the employees do whatever they want. Volunteering, a lot of people decided to volunteer to help the army build its forces, and make sure that logistics works, and volunteer whatever they can for the people of the south that was evacuated in tens of thousands, or people who got recruited on a shiny Saturday for weeks of war. So that was the first week. talking me through with the employees of the company. But then I think after the first week, it was our responsibility, as Yotam said, to try to make the business roll, to trying to make the economy roll. If you're not an active reserve server, which is most of the Israeli people, you need to make sure that after this war will end, the business will survive. It's our responsibility. So I think communicating and talking with either your investors, your customers, that the business is running. We know that you're aware of the situation in Israel. We share. We're very proud of being Israelis. We talk about it very openly with our customers. We're a tech company, so we work mostly with engineers and data scientists, and they're fully aware of where we're based. We're not shy about it.
Sure.
So I think communicating and talking with either the champions or the teams that you're working with, that thank you for being worried for us. We're here available for you for whatever you need. It's our responsibility.
Makes a lot of sense. Yotam, would you agree? Do you have any other viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I agree that first of all you have to, and I think it's the right way to handle any company, especially as startups. Employees first, customers second, and investors third. So that's the order of importance. Obviously, the business cannot last without the employees. They need your support, and all the companies that I've spoken to have given their employees the leeway to do whatever they want to do. Some have allocated funds for them, to call in babysitters to allow people to work. And a lot of companies have pulled together, like there's a massive shortage of working hands in the industry and in agriculture. We have a lot of foreign agriculture workers from Thailand that have fled the country. So the fields are filled with fruits and vegetables right for the picking, and no one to pick them. Entire companies took a day off, went to the fields and have picked them up. So there's huge logistic support around the country. So if you do that as a company, it helps bring people together. It gives you a sense of meaning. Obviously, it's not going to save the country or the agriculture, but it does help a lot of people. Volunteering in general, a lot of Israeli companies do it on an ongoing basis for myriad reasons and uses, but especially now it's critically important. And I think that customers are aware of our situation, and I think they understand that for a week or two there's going to be some delays, and that's fine if you communicate that clearly. And after that, you should emphasize that although yes, it has some impact on the business, we will try to do whatever we can to keep everything normal. And again, it's not business as usual. It's an economy under war, but we're robust, we're resilient enough to withstand that. And I think, I look back not very far ago to COVID. When COVID started, it seemed like the end of the world. How can we work when the office is closed? And we all managed to find ways to circumnavigate that and find new ways. And actually, businesses have found ways to do it better and in an improved manner. So if the company can operate with, 20%, a lot of tech companies, very young people out of the IDF, so they've been drafted, and they still manage to deliver on time, that just means they're going to be more effective down the line. So I think this is a very strong point with Israel. Yes, we can operate in such unnatural circumstances. We should not ignore the challenges. But on the other hand, I think that we should keep at least externally, keep our focus on doing business and delivering. Some companies have picked up fights along the line of such exhibitions where people have said things against Israel. I think that personally you should do whatever you think you should do, but as a business, keep the business going. Don't get into dogfights. Don't try to be the spokesperson of Israel. Shai can do it.
Well, it's his job or his sideline.
I mean, he does it on a personal note, but he still has his professional hat as VP marketing. He should never neglect that. And in general, I think like people have started doing battles on LinkedIn, posting a lot of very graphic content.
Oh boy.
I don't think that's the right platform to do that
No.
anyways. I mean, you want to be active, do it as your own voice and not as the company voice, and pick the right platform where people are interested in having discussions. Otherwise, doing this on social media is just like butting your head again, or you're smashing it against the wall. I mean, nothing's good going to come out of it.
Well, I think it's a very strong message to send about resilience. And let's face it, much of the world depends on a lot of the great technology that comes out of Israel. And we've even had journalists sniff around for a story about how the problems there might be creating cyber problems over here because the Israeli tech community is under stress, which, as you just explained, for the most part, tech there is they're keeping up, right? I mean, they're not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
as far as I can tell I mean, we've gone into this situation not in a bad shape, but not in a terrific shape. I mean, the economy has taken a hit even prior to this attack. It hasn't been a great year for tech in general, and in Israel in specific, with everything that's going on locally and politically. But business are still moving. We've had two huge exits this week alone, worth over $1 billion. I mean, Palo Alto came and bought two cyber companies. If that's not a vote of confidence,
yeah,
I mean, they didn't just buy the tech, they bought the people. That means they recruited, I don't know, hundreds of people locally. They know that they're based here. It's not like they can take this IP and implement it into Palo Alto's platform and it will work tomorrow. No, they have very long effort of implementing it. They count on Israel. I say it as a unanimous vote of confidence. The leading tech or cyber company in the world, I think we all agree, they have like 70 billion in market cap. It's huge, and they've placed this bet on Israel, saying we believe in this market, we believe in this tech community. So who am I to argue with Palo Alto? And they're not an Israeli company by any means. They have some Israeli ancestors, but other than that, they want to do business. They think the tech is good. They trust the people to be here going forward. So I think that's a strong message. It's difficult, but we will endure.
I want to second to that, and I think if you're talking about a non-Israeli company making investments, you can look at all of the big names: NVIDIA, Intel, Google, Apple, Amazon. All of these companies have either shown support and active support in Israel or in their Israeli employees. So they're showing the people that work there, we're with you, stay strong, and we'll go back to business as soon as everything is going to end.
This gets a little tough, and I kind of agree, but Tom, I think I heard you say don't really get political, and Shai, you indicated that some companies are choosing a side. I guess this all gets back to the outbound communications. And apart from letting the world know and your customers know that and your partners that you're there, you continue to operate, what should the message be? What should the pace of communications be? Are we going to come out with a big product announcement now, or continuing with events? Are we acknowledging what's happening in some way, even if we're not getting political?
It depends. It depends. How big are you? How strong are you? I do agree with you, Tom. I think that most of the companies shouldn't, as a company, pick a side. Like I'm an Israeli civilian. So I live in Israel, so I can pick a side. It's okay. As myself, will Aporia go out with a huge announcement? We back up Israel. Like it's not relevant. For big brands that has employees that work here, it is important. For startups, for 400, 500 employee companies, is it important to pick a side? No, it's important to keep on working. Like I don't think that it's company's job to pick a side unless we're talking about huge brands like all of the ones that I've named before.
Sure.
And even if you are such a big brand like Intel, you can, strongly, and they have massive operations here in Israel. They're the largest employee in the Israeli market, the largest single employee, the non-government. They have more than 10,000 employees here in Israel, and they given their employee a grant of, I think, $500 to all of their employees in Israel. It's a big investment, and that's to show that they support the people of Israel. They didn't have to go out publicly say, we condemn the people who are going against Israel, we are pro-Israel. No, they just very publicly said, this is the people are in need there. As a company, we support them. And I think that's what you should be doing. And I think that the best way to test that will be going forward. There's a big AWS conference at the end of the month. Many cyber companies, many Israeli companies will be there in some capacity. I think that's the best way to ensure that, we show the world that we keep on, and business is not as usual, but it's operating. So you don't have to be there with a huge Israeli flag. It's enough if you stand at your booth and you welcome people. If they want to talk politics, they can do that. You're not there to represent Israel. You're not there to fight people who want to boycott you. That's not your role. If you be there and you're accessible, people say, hey, we know that you've been through a rough time, but that this is the business, and you keep doing what you need to do.
Well, I think it's good to walk a line between totally ignoring what's happening, which is really hard to do, and getting too political or inflammatory. And, it's good to have a mix of acknowledging what's happening. If there have been selfless acts or losses, you can acknowledge them, but also continue with business. And business goes on, and that's, one of the ways to persevere and to win in a situation like this. So it must be incredibly frustrating, assuming you're watching the headlines and the news coming out from the U.S. and not just from the media, but some of the conflicts you're seeing and protests against Israel. What is your reaction? Do you watch them? Do you tune it out? Do you just kind of reports?
I don't think it's possible to tune out. It will reach you, any platform that you use, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. It'll catch you on TikTok. You see it in the mainstream media, and I guess, as I said, it's a big world. There's lots of opinions, and I think at least the mainstream media is doing an okay job in portraying the situation as it is. I'm not talking about the history of what was. There've been, atrocities that no one can actually specify. There are casualties on the other side. We understand it's a war. If you keep a balanced reporting, it's fine. As with all the anti-Israeli sentiment in the world, again, I always look back at history. It's nothing new. It happens every time when there's a conflict, an armed conflict involving Israel. It has happened to the Jewish people before. I don't think the state of Israel should be extremely concerned of this at the moment, because we have, more acute things to deal with. And in the end, if we do what we need to do to keep our civilians safe, that's the main focus at the moment. Although it does get under your skin, we know that there have been, as I said, atrocities. Kids and babies have been murdered. I'm not saying that kids aren't dying on Gaza, but no one here is doing this on purpose. This is the big difference. Yeah. I guess when you live far away and you feed off media, or even worse, just social media influencers, you would get a very unbalanced view of what's happening. And I don't blame people, especially young people. You've mentioned 911. If you live through 911, you know that it feels like a kick in the gut to anyone living in the free world, but specifically people in the US. Like, there are two moments in time no one in the United States will ever forget, and that's where you were when Kennedy got shot and where you were at 9/11. Everyone remembers that. If you're younger than that and you don't have this living in the memory, like civilians dying in a huge, unprecedented terror attack, I mean, you haven't actually felt that. It might seem, mundane. Okay, there's been another skirmish in Israel. More people are dying. It doesn't seem that unique. I think anyone who's lived such, and when you live through that time, you're traumatized, even if you're not impacted directly. Same with Pearl Harbor. If no one here is older enough to have lived through that, but something that lives in the memory of a nation. And if you've lived through that, I think you have some empathy to what we're going through at the moment. And if you haven't, I hope you'll never experience that in your life.
Right.
I mean, you're a New Yorker, right? 9/11 lives in your memory. Whenever you look there at the skyline and something is missing,
Oh,
you see
100%.
it and it says, you don't even have to go to ground zero to know that something terrible has happened. I mean, when someone dies here in Israel, we use the word halal, which literally means a vacant space, okay, to describe them. We don't call them murdered or killed. If you're killed on active duty, we call you literally a vacant space or blank space. And that's what you see when you look at the skyline. I mean, you can always imagine what happened there, what the people must have felt. But if you're new to New York and you look at the skyline, it's just what it is. So I can't blame you for not reliving the tragedy, but more empathy would definitely help in this case.
Yeah. Part of the challenge, though, is that some of the reports and some of the sentiment brings pressure on the Israeli government and on the U.S. government. Ties your hands a bit, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's just frustrating to see sometimes the attempts at nuance and moral equivalence, which just really hurt. So I guess we're all doing our part. That's part of what this podcast is about. Shai, that's what your effort is about, to try to, in some way, help shape the narrative. It's a big job.
I have to say, Bob, as an Israeli, and we both, Shai and myself, we have some military background, mine specifically from the Navy, and seeing the amount of forces that the US has sent here to back Israel up, to help us against, future conflicts. There are two carrier groups operating in the region. There's a huge Marine force right next to southern Israel. There's bombers all around. They're sending more missiles, anti-missile missiles to all the region. I mean, the US is putting genuine support for Israel. And this is definitely, I mean, this is unprecedented. There's never been such massive actual military support. And I think in times like this, I mean, you can really tell who your friends are in the world. And we have, there's been an alliance between the United States and Israel going back decades. But we really feel it at this point, and we're grateful. I hope the US doesn't have to step in military, but the fact that it's here to support us, that means that the free world acknowledged that something has changed, and the fact that the US is sending troops here to assist means that we're not alone, and really it's heartwarming. Again, I hope no one has to go into fight. We can end this on our own without further escalation. But if it does happen, we know we have your back. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, we got to do what we can to try to mitigate a wider regional conflict and be there as a friend. Some have said, even before the war, with the political conflict there, that there might be an exodus of Israeli executives and startups to other parts of the world, maybe the US. Have you seen any of that or no?
I think that we're seeing the other direction. We're seeing lots of Israelis coming back from all over the world. I have personally 5 friends that have came back from the US and Europe. I think a part of it is because they're scared. Like, we see what's going on in Europe. We see the global sentiment, and people are worried. But the main reason for their comeback is feeling the need of being here,
feeling the need of being with family, and feeling the need of being around, helping.
That's great. That's great. Any other thoughts to share? If not, maybe that's a good note to end on, but
I have to say that I've gotten like numerous messages, phone calls on LinkedIn, on Twitter, people they have my number through WhatsApp from many places, especially in the US. And the first notion was always, how are you guys? And the second was we support you. And you can't really say a lot through text messages. I used to do this very laconic message saying, we're safe, but we're not okay. And then thank you, something like that. But it really means a lot. I mean, you can't really process it at the moment. And people have done it in the very few couple of days after the attack. Obviously, we were overwhelmed. But the fact that many people around the world, and I think that's the strength of business and personal relations. Like I have many acquaintances, colleagues, ex-colleagues around the world. And the fact that the Israel tech community has such a wide network, it really helps us. We know that people will want to continue buy Israeli products. They will want to continue cooperate. As I mentioned, I mean, that move with Palo Alto and the Israeli companies, this has been brewing on for months now. But the fact that they've finalized it this week, I think it means a lot.
yeah.
And I really appreciate the fact that such big companies taken, it's not a bet, but taking such bold step. They could have postponed it. No one would have said anything. I mean, the future, the area is under turmoil. Okay, no, but they went through it. It's not business as usual, but we try to keep it like that.
Yeah, I mean, following 9/11, a lot of that happened when you were trying to keep business going. It seemed like what was happening was an excuse to postpone things. I'm sorry, we can't do this now. A little farther down the road, but to the extent that, like you said, Yotam, deals are going forward, business is going forward. The best way to support is to support and to continue your work and be there for your Israeli friends and clients. And we are there. So I guess we'll wrap. But thank you so much for joining Yotam and Shai. This has been extremely helpful. And hope we talk again soon.
Thank you. And I have to say before we wrap up,
please.
I really do appreciate Fusion for all their help connecting us with global media, US media. We've talked about 70 other CMOs, but in my personal story, I reached out to Jordan a few weeks ago, and he immediately said, yes, we're in. We've made out some great stories together to global nationwide networks, and I'm really proud of working with the Fusion crew, especially in these times.
Thank you so much for those very kind words. As you know, we really appreciate you as a client, and Yotam, you as a partner. So we'll continue to do great work together. And please stay very safe. You and your family stay strong, and we'll be in touch again soon.